Hi, and welcome to LNA Does Audio Stuff. Hey, All About Ableton Live series is back, and this tutorial is about Roar. So stick around because I will explain to you what it is, what it does, and how to apply it into different scenarios. I have used it since Ableton Live 12 came out because I'm making a track a month this year, and especially I love using it on bass. So remember to check the rest of All About Ableton Live series and also my Ableton Live and Push courses from the links down below. And while you are there, give me some love and validation that I need by subscribing and hitting the like button. Let's get into it and look at Roar. So we have 5 areas that we need to talk about today. So we have input area, gain staging area, which is these tabs here, modulation, which is this tab here that expands like this and also expands from this triangle there. Voila. And then we have feedback mode and global area. To be able to demonstrate what it actually does, I'm going to use wavetable with a single sine wave. So here we go. This is how a sine wave sounds. So it's a pure tone. I have a spectrum analyzer here, so you can see this is the one note. So let's talk about input section first. So we have this drive control here. It allows us to add quickly or remove distortion. We're adjusting the level of input signal before it goes to this gain staging area. What I recommend before you start using Roar or any kind of saturation is that you really get to know the output control first. So I want to take output down a little bit there before I start adding anything. So it will make the signal a bit quieter. That's fine, because now if we want to try adding the drive, it's not going to hurt our ears. Let's add some drive and see what happens to the signal. So did you see what happened? This was before. We only have this main big harmonic, and then we have these harmonics here. The main signal and this. So now let's add some drive, and you can see that these other little ones come in, and those are harmonics. Any kind of coloring or distortion or saturation, what it does that we're adding these extra like signals or harmonics into a sound. It's almost like when you are editing a picture, when you add saturation, every color becomes more vivid. It just becomes more. It's basically the same thing. Okay. So then we have tone. With this, we can balance the low and the high frequencies, and we also have a tone filter frequency. So let's have a look what this looks like. Added a lot of drive. You can hear that it's a little bit more higher frequency, and you can see these little ones coming along more. There's more happening. If we put it on the other side, it's less sharp, there's less high frequencies. Now if we move the filter frequency up, you can see how those frequencies are moving. They became a lot, oh, I was pointing with my finger to the screen. These became a lot more higher. Around exactly what 2K kilohertz. And when I take this filter down, they lower. So we can sculpt the sound to be sharper or warmer. And then we have this button here that is the color compensation. It applies a mirrored version to the tone control. So can you hear if I put it tone all the way up to 100%? And we're gonna first listen this way. Now let's click it. Can you hear how it's just swapped it to be so much brighter suddenly? Mellow, more warm, brighter. It's a great tool to assist us, especially when we're working with guitars with like a lot of higher tones. Okay, so then we have a routing options. So we have single, serial, parallel, multiband, mid-side, and feedback options. These are the core important aspects of how RAW works. So if we click single, you see that we only have one single stage, gain stage option. This is where the routing shows, and this is where the amount of stages show. So if we, example, go to serial, we see that the routing is now that next to the stage that we have created, we have applied another stage. So we are basically combining two together. Now we have an option to blend them together. So we have a stage number 1 and stage number 2. I will explain the stages in the next section of this video, so you will understand what we're talking about. Okay, next we have parallel, which means that we have two stages that work parallel to each other. Next is my new favorite, multiband. So it's 3 stages together, but they're divided into different bands of frequency range instead of just being parallel fully with each other. So we have a low frequency, which is from sub area to 200, mid area, which is 200 to 2K, and then high area 2K to all the way the highest frequencies. So low, mid, and high. This allows us to divide a signal and process these different frequency areas separately in a frequency. I will show that again in a minute. We have mid side, where we have mid area that we can process separately from the side areas. So mid frequencies, side frequencies. That's to do with stereo width. So we have middle, and then we have stereo width. And then we have feedback, and feedback works perfectly when we have this feedback mode. All of this makes sense more now when we're going to go into talking about gain staging section. Okay, so in here we have a couple controls. We have amount, bias, frequency. Amount is to do with this whole area here. So we have a single shape. So we're applying this shape, single shape, which is here, demonstrated visually. We are modulating the signal with that shape, which means that we can add different type of harmonics into a sound. So when we have this one sine wave, if we apply this soft sine wave into it and we add amount, look what happens. Instantly we get more harmonics, quite a lot of them, especially on the high end. Let's see if we add other type of example, tube preamp. The signal shape is different and it sounds slightly more warmer. There's plenty more harmonics happening on the top end there. But we can also control the level of it, the volume level. So I could have a lot of it, but the impact of it is less harsh because the level is lower. Another thing I like using a lot is the bias. So the bias is now we have its center affected, so the center of the shape that we are choosing. But if we use the bias, we can move the center to the right or to the left. This will affect the signal differently. So example is kind of cutting off the whole signal when we go all the way to the left. This is really cool when you have example pluck instruments like bass, and you will use the bias to go left and right, and you will hear it actually can add to the rhythm as well. So it's a really cool thing. Then we have frequency, which affects the filter that is here below. So we have different kind of filters for the frequency. So we could have example notch and use the frequency control to move the notch in the filter. So now let's demonstrate all of this, what we have learned on a bass. So I have here Arturia Acid V. And I chose a bass line that is quite mute, quite round, quite sine wave. It's very low key. So what we want to do, example, bass like this, is to pop it out from the mix, bring it out, make it harsher, make it groovier, make it something more interesting. So it's popping out and it's like, bass, not like, yay, bass. We will now go routing, and I will use multiband because that is my favorite for a bass. Why is it favorite for a bass? Let me show on here. Bass usually happens here in a very sub frequencies, but also between 100K and kind of 300K is where the action happens to make it pop out of the mix. There's less happening on the high end usually, but it can also happen. So what I would like to do now here is to make this, the low area, to be all the way sub sounds to about 100 Hertz. And then the mid area is between 100 to 2K. That's okay. So low area, this low gain staging area, is now going to be 100 and under. Now I'm going to mute the mid and the high, and we can hear how that will sound. Okay, so for this, I would like to keep the soft sine, and we're only now hearing the low. We are adding some sound. Remember to take output down a little bit, so we're not adding too much. Also, I'm going to add some drive. Well, it's bringing quite a lot of the high frequencies. So what I want to do is use the filter to low pass filter it, just to have the sub around under 100 Hertz. That's a very cool sub that. Also, the level is going up quite a lot now, so I can gain stage it, just put a little bit less. That's better. Now we're going to add exactly the same thing to the mid. How much interesting is that already? Okay, for the here, instead of soft sine, I'm going to use tube preamp because it's quite nice and warm for this sound. I like that. Very cool. And now let's try out the bias thing that I was explaining to you earlier. See what happens when I take it to the right. It sounds different. Different type of tonal quality. And then we can add high. If we want to go high frequencies, and add maybe a bit crusher to the high end. Filter that and take the level down. Now we can use the tone to play around with it. Reverse it. No, thank you. I want the low end. We can use the filter. Actually was quite nice in a 180. What if we go to the other end? It's a lot more boomier sound. Imagine this with mixing. So it just helps you to locate, okay, kick can example take more 100 Hertz, where bass can take some boomier sounds and about 200 to 300 Hertz. So it just allows you to shape these sounds and locate them a lot more easier. So before, after. Yeah. A lot more present, a lot more interesting, a lot more So this year I am making and releasing a track per month, and what I'm using to release all these tracks is DistroKid. They have nowadays an app. It allows you to see all the tracks that you have created that are out. And you know what I sometimes really struggle with is that when you create a hyperfollow, so the link where you can share your tracks really easily and the music videos and all the kind of info about your track, sometimes I lose the link and then I need to go to my laptop and find it from there. But now from the app, I can go into the track that I want to share, and then from there I can go either visit hyperfollow or share hyperfollow. So example, I can go to visit it, which allows me to see it in full, or I can just go and get the link super easily. So if you're already a user for DistroKid, go and download this app. Or if you are looking to publish more music and you're looking to where to do it, then DistroKid is giving all my followers -7% off for the first subscription. So the link to that -7% is from down below. So go and check that out. Thank you so much, DistroKid, for supporting my channel so that I can make my own music and release it. So that's pretty cool. Okay, let's talk about the modulation area. So we have LFO1, LFO2, which are low frequency oscillators, which basically, for anyone who's a beginner, it means that we have these single shapes that allow us to modulate, so control certain controls like the amount or the filter frequency or whatever you want out of this. We can control them with these shapes. Let me demonstrate what this means. So this is bit now like small and tiny to control here. So what I want to do is go here to this triangle, extend it, and I can now see the whole modulation area and the whole roar in more detail. So we have low area, mid, high over here. So example, what we just controlled, these. Now we can see the LFO1, LFO2, envelope follower as noise controls here on the bottom. On the right, we have modulation matrix. This modulation matrix means that we can connect things together basically and modulate things, control things with each other. It's very, very cool. And I'm going to show you now the most simple way to do that. So in the modulation matrix, I can now connect the LFO1, LFO2, envelope, follower, and noise to any of these selection areas here. So input selection to the drive, tone amount, tone frequency. So drive, tone amount, tone frequency, these controls here. So then we have the low, mid, and high gain staging areas. So low, mid, and high. And we can see examples: shaper 1 amount, bias, shaper level, frequency, resonant, morph, peak, all these things that we just talked about. So we can control low, mid, and high separately. Then we have modulation area. So we can, example, even connect LFO1 to LFO1 controls. The LFO1 controls itself. It's crazy, it's so cool. Also, we can connect it to the feedback area and also global area where output and dry and wet are. Okay, this is a lot. What does it mean? How does it work? So LFO1, let's just use the default settings. And we're going to go to the mid area. So it's this one here, the mid gain staging area. So LFO1, I want to control it, the filter frequency, which is this control here. I want to control that with LFO1. So I'm going to go here, and it now, if I hover over it, it says 0.0. So if I scroll to the right, it shows me numbers up to 100. If I go left, it shows me up to -100. This means that we can control values, positive or negative. If I go positive, it will go certain way. If I go negative, it will go certain way. I will show you what that difference is. So example, let's go 58. And now look at this filter frequency and this control here when I press play. What's happening? So this LFO, you can see the movement is controlling the movement of this filter frequency. If I go negative, the movement is slightly different. It's like an opposite around. So we can do the same with LFO2. We could control input drive here, which is this control here, input drive, and see how that works out. Very cool. With envelope follower here, so envelope follower, we can control attack, release, threshold, gain, and frequency and width. So we can go to the modulation area and example the LFO morph with the envelope. So I'm connecting now this area into this area. So now this is moving. Look at that. Noise. So we have simplex, wonder, SNH, and if you open this, you can see all the different ones explained. So we could example put it on noise on output, and now need to put it very carefully because otherwise it can peak and hurt our ears. Something that you can hear quite easily, maybe 116, right? We also have here global amount, and this is the global amount of how much all of this modulation that we have added affects the original sound. When we have all these noises coming in, envelopes and LFOs, how much do we want them to affect the original sound? So I could go example and add it to 50%. So it's still there, but it's a little bit more gentle. Next, we have feedback section, and for that, we're gonna use drums. So we have beat here. So generally, drums are great with roar. You could example use the same multiband. Output down, little bit drive. I'm gonna put the tone down a bit. Add a little bit on the kick area. Or if we don't want to add anything for the kick, what we can add is some to the high example, some saturation on the high area. Example, this clip has low, mid and high areas of frequency, so it just doesn't have all the drums separately. So this multiband processing can mean that I can add some saturation to the high end but not to the low end, which is great. Let's go to the feedback mode, and this is great for drums, rhythm, keys, any kind of like chord progression. So we have time, we have synced, triplet, dot and note, same as any delay, and then we have time, length, amount. So let's start putting in. I'm just gonna put it on single now so you can hear that. Let's put some more longer time. Very cool. We can add some creative rhythm. We can swap the polarity of the delay, or we can make sure that feedback is not playing when there's no signal happening. So that's a good one to keep on if you want to. Without it, there's a lot more happening. Delay. So this adds maybe a little bit more like rhythm to the sound, especially when you're working with something like drums. Then we have frequency width. So this allows, there's basically this filter that's happening. So if I move it left and right on the frequency range, you can hear it. I'm gonna put the spectrum on so you can see it as well to the low end. So now the feedback, the delay is more on the low end. Let's go to the high end. Now it's happening more on the high end. And this is the width of the modulation, the filter that we're talking about. Here we have feedback, okay? So that allows us to have a mode where we have direct and feedback gain staging area. So now the direct signal is the main signal, so this drums here, and the feedback is we can saturate the actual feedback signal of it by itself. So now we have a lot of feedback going. Let's add some saturation to the feedback signal. We can make level lower, so I can hear the main signal. Trippy. Main direct. We can also control the blend of these two different gain staging areas. So example 30-50, or so it's like how much are we hearing each one of them, so the direct and the feedback. Okay, one more thing we're going to talk about is compress. So we actually have on the global area, we have a compressor. We have the amount of it. And then we have also this SCHPF, a side chain high pass filter for low frequency control. So it means that basically we can keep the low end more dynamic when we are compressing. So example, if you have a clip like this where we have a kick, hi-hats and snares, we can make sure that we're not compressing the low end too much. So we're compressing more the snares and the hi-hats than the kick, means that we can keep the kick more dynamic. Very cool. Output we already talked about, means that we can gain stage while we're working and also making sure that we are saving our ears. We also have a dry wet control, how much of this whole roar we want to apply for the signal. So example, with this effect, with the feedback, it sounds pretty cool in around 80. As I said, I've been using this on my tracks, example my new track Curious, which is coming out later this month, but also my latest tracks Good Choices, Things I Want, and go and listen to the tracks and link down below and listen to the basses because you can hear roar in there. Also, the discussion about Ableton Live music production and learning continues in my Patreon community. So if you want to make a track per month, then come to the community because that's where you can do that. Hey, hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial. Subscribe and hit the bell icon and come again. Bye, 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 bye.